Okay, welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host J.R. Stewart, and my other co-host Tommy Duncan has us on mute. Um, Tommy, you got to unmute. There you go. You got to unmute. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Tom. And we also have a special guest today. Why don't you introduce our guest, Tom? Can you hear, sir? Oh, then Tommy has to speak up. Okay. Um, that may be a performance issue on our system. This is our first time trying to do three streams like this. But I can hear you guys great. So if I can hear you, then the listening audience will be able to hear you fine. And if I have to, I'll see what I can do to boost the sound signal between the two of you. Yes. Understand. Okay. And Reverend Caver, I have a smile on my face now. I want you to know that. And I just want to say up front, um, even though I may have some criticism of the church at times, it is not directed at you personally or nor your church or in any kind of way. So you don't have to defend all of the churches. I just want you to know that. So don't feel like you have to put your guard up and defend all of the churches. My chief complaint really is against the big mega churches for the most part. Um, Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Well, I can hear you quite well. I've boosted the sound signal up as high as it would go. So let me see. So they can't hear you. Okay, I think that is as loud as it would go, Tom. So let's get started. Hmm, okay. I'm not sure how to boost the audio any higher than what it is because you guys are blasted in my ear right now. So sure. Yeah, let's hope it gets better. Um, so Reverend, let's start with the role of the church historically, being the center of the community to help combat social issues, legal issues, educational issues, and even economic issues. How does the current church today, as a center of the black community, compare to the historic church? Do you think people are less active because the church has had a diminished role, or is the church having a diminished role because people are less active? I mean, which came first? Right. Go ahead, Tom.
media, there's a tendency for, and it's, we're pastors, we're people, so there's a tendency to want to be popular. You want followers, you want, these large numbers, and you might intend to do things to try to reach more people where it might not necessarily be what God is calling you to do. Uh, you might try to match people. I'm trying to match this other ministry that I see they're doing this, but let me try to see if I can do that. But again, God might not have called me to do what that other ministry or that other pastor is doing. On the positive side, of course, you can reach more people quickly, and so that extends the reach of ministry. So I'm not. I know you said something else, but I couldn't quite hear everything. So I might
Yeah,
have to ask again. What
basically,
what it is?
what impact do you think positive and negative mass media has had on the church? And I guess what I'm capturing is that to a certain degree, mass media, has made the world, the globe, the earth a lot smaller. And so, in certain instances, what I'm hearing you saying, it has kind of democratized the delivery of the ministry to a certain degree.
Explain it a little further. I want to make sure I'm
When
getting
I
it.
say when I say that mass media has kind of the the ministry or the church. I mean, considering you look at social media, you look at all of these other platforms that you can reach people on any part of the globe practically. If you have an internet signal, it has expanded the reach of the church. But also, to your point, anybody can become a minister, and that can be a good thing, but that can also be a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. So actually, our church we just started a series on false prophets. Uh, so so my members can recognize, hey, this is listen to what they're saying. You can recognize these people because it is so much is out there. So uh, yeah, again the access is unbelievable. Again, and it helps. It really helps, but it also really hurts. You get on Facebook Sunday morning, the churches were not meeting in person. I mean, you got 100 choices of where to if you want to listen to church. That's good, but it's also bad because now, well, which one should I go to?
Right. So let me ask you this, Pastor. The question of the issue of money. Is there too much money in church? Does the money have an influence on the message, the type of message, and the quality of the message?
Uh, I think it depends upon the person. It depends upon the money. Uh, for most, I think a lot of times people forget. And you mentioned mega churches. Most people, I think, many people forget that most churches are not mega
I
churches.
know.
Most churches are struggling to. I would say struggling, not maybe not the right word, but it's great. It's a good year to get everybody paid, pay your utilities, help some people, and you've had a good year. So for those churches, really, money is not a temptation to alter the message because it's not enough to tempt anybody really, unless you came in it for money in the get go. I can see completely, and that's just that each church, each pastor, each staff member, those big churches, uh, have to watch that and hopefully put processes in place to help guard against that.
Okay. Tom?
But another thing is also I see big numbers.
Hmm.
People say billions of dollars in the church, and maybe so. The pastors I know, we don't see we don't see those numbers. So and maybe in the mega churches they do.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Let me ask you this. I guess in the day and age of the internet, the mega church, and I think, I guess what I'm hearing is that a lot of times the messages of the mega churches, which are in a very small minority, I don't know if they even comprise, 2 to 3 to 5 message of the small and mid-sized church, which is really the core of our community. Does that is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
You got cut off right after you said mega church, and I came back in and I heard back in about bulldogs or
Gotcha.
medium-sized
Well,
churches.
do you believe that? So you mentioned earlier that really the core church in our communities are small, medium-sized churches, right?
Correct.
Right.
But you have a few churches. I'll name a few. Which are really the small and mid-sized church. Or do you see a major difference?
Between, can you hear him, Pastor? He was asking, is there a major difference between like the really big mega churches who sort of run roughshod for us the messaging over the smaller churches?
Okay. Uh, that is somewhat that's somewhat true for the someone who attends church sporadically. I would say
Okay.
the mega church controls the narrative of what people think of churches, what the message of churches. Uh, for those who are faithful, by faithful members I mean most Sundays you will see them there. They're helping support the church through their actions and also their giving. I
Excuse me.
don't think that is the case. And like with all churches, you got small churches that are, I think, are presenting the wrong message. You got small churches that are giving the good message. Same thing with the mega churches. I think there's mega churches that are doing some outstanding things, probably many things better than what we expect. And there's some mega churches who I think are outright, uh, a detriment to the Christian community.
Well, let me ask you this, Pastor. Is it fair to expect more from the churches? Should the church be at the center or the foundation of the community? And where people can bring their problems and their issues for some resolution or some assistance, or is that just asking too much from the church today?
Um, I think that is fair because again, God is concerned about every aspect of life. Uh, but that is fair if people approach the church as in I'm approaching. If they don't try to divorce, uh, a lot of times people try to divorce God from the church. I want what the church, what they can offer. I want the impact. I want all that, but I don't really want God.
All right.
That's where I think. But if a person's coming in, I want God first, and then how can God use the church, use me through the church? Then yeah, that's you can. I think you can expect great things to come out. But if it's just you know, uh, y'all need to do this, y'all need to do that, and I really don't care about because again, speaking spiritually, God he doesn't work that way. You have to seek Him first, and then all these other things that you know Matthew. I don't want to preach Matthew 6:33. All these other things will be added, the things that are concerning of life, and so it's a lot, but it's not so much. God can handle it, and through His church, He can handle a lot of things, but people have to come to it with a sincere heart of seeking God first.
Should pastors have outside jobs? I mean, I remember when I belonged to a small church, and we had a full-time pastor who was there every day. Excuse me. And you could come any day on your lunch break, any day of the week, while he was there and get counseling and talk with them. Versus when we had a part-time minister who was there for Wednesday night Bible study and Sunday sermon, and then got paid afterwards. Um, the quality of what the church was able to provide to the people was different when we had a part-time minister versus a full-time pastor.
Right. I believe if all possible, that the church should try to provide, enough so that the minister can be full time. There might, again, many times some churches just can't afford that. I think probably most ministers would like to would like to be full time, but some have to be bivocational and work outside of the church. But I think ideally it is definitely better for the church and also better for ministers
Right.
if that person can be full time.
Okay. Tom?
So digging back a little bit, if we consider the role of the church in the black community, historically speaking, at least in America, the black the church has been the centerpiece of
Yes.
the black community. And when we had nothing else, we had the church.
Right.
And even though the slave master, when our ancestors were slaves, put restrictions on what the church could do, that's what they had in order to deal with and overcome the grief and the pain of being enslaved. But if we look at the 20th and the 21st century, and we look at the role of the black church, it was in the center of our struggles for civil rights,
Right.
citizenship. It was in the center of our struggle for political rights, which is the right to vote. The tricky part, if we look at the future, is economic empowerment. When we look at the role of the black church and economic empowerment, we're not talking about taking tithes, but actually helping to build an economic infrastructure of the black community. Do you think that black church can or even should play a role in economic empowerment, or is that a conflict of interest? I know that was kind of a long question.
Um, I believe the church can should. Uh, I'm gonna answer it this way. I believe different churches. Now, speaking as a whole, I would probably say yes. Individual churches, I believe different churches are called to focus on different ministries and kind of the different parts of the body type analogy that the Bible makes. Uh, but as a whole, I believe that again, uh, Christianity takes care, of course, the soul first, but also the whole man. Uh, so yeah, I believe churches can again, at some level, some churches again are just helping the economics of the neighborhood by providing employment for the
Right.
clerk, for the staff, for a secretary, for a musician, for a janitor. On another level, some churches, some of these mega churches do have like, they do actually have. I think uh, maybe Friendship West or Church Without Wall. One of them, I know they have like credit unions. So some churches have gone
Correct.
that far to help build the economy, or whether it's just supporting. Our church, we try to support local black businesses when we need a painter, when we need a plumber, when we need an electrician, or when we need T-shirts. Someone said, "Well, my cousin sells T-shirts." Well, we'll buy T-shirts from them. So even in small ways. So uh, since the people that we serve, again, it'd be nice if churches weren't segregated, but as now they are. So the people we serve are predominantly black. So I believe that we should, look after as much as we can their economic welfare. Uh, and according again how God has called me to a particular church. Maybe my church is not doing it, but I can pay members. Our church, we don't have this ministry, but this other church does. You can avail yourself to what they're doing over there.
Okay. Should that be a message of the church for, like, for example, I just read a study about um, Asian Indians versus Vietnamese, Koreans, and Chinese as far as who's the most successful. And basically, the study said that Asian Indians are more successful around the world when they leave India because they start more businesses than the other Asian groups. Is that's something that maybe we should focus on in the church to make sure our people understand they have to be involved in the game and for us to build wealth. We can't just be consumers and purchasers and expect to somehow build wealth long term when we're comparing ourselves against other groups in America.
And is that a fair expectation from the pulpit?
I think that is only fair if that again the particular church, and I keep going back to the whole church, particular church has resources. I mean, if your church has those business men, business women, uh, those lawyers, those doctors, and many of the lawyers and doctors and businessmen, hey, they made their money. They're like, I don't have time for church anymore. You need those people, the entrepreneurs, to say, hey, let me show you the way. You got, like I said, you got a single pastor. He has an outside job, and he has a church job. He's barely trying to get the sermon ready for Sunday, let alone thinking about, showing members how to start a business. Even though many times pastors have to, in black churches, we have to try to be everything. I think that's why God called me to be a political science major, because I need to know about everything, not a know about anything. But I can share a little something. Uh, so, kind of, I guess, I'm sorry, I probably wish I had a better answer, but
No, that's a good answer. It's a good answer. So, Tom, we're running up on the end of time. We have a couple of minutes left. And why don't we give Pastor a chance to, why don't you tell the people the name of your church, if you don't mind, and where you guys are located, and how to reach you guys if they're interested in coming to visit your church and potentially becoming a member.
okay, well,
Great way to close out.
again, my name is Dimitri Tabor. The name of the church is World Missionary Baptist Church. You can find us on Facebook. Is a great way to reach us if you're on Facebook. Just look for World Missionary Baptist Church. Our website is World MBC, again, as in Missionary Baptist Church, worldmbc.com. Right now, our services are only online, but we do have on Sunday mornings, 10:30 a.m. You can go to our Facebook page, and we have worship services. You can also go there now and look at some past services and messages to kind of get an idea. And we have Bible study Wednesdays at 7 p.m. But love to have you. Welcome to visit, and we teach the Word of God. We believe the Word of God. We believe in loving all people, and we believe that we're saved to serve.
Okay. And Pastor, if you could do us one big favor, we always close out the show with a prayer, and we also make sure that we give thanks to our ancestors. We normally have Tommy to do the honors, but would you do the honors for us tonight?
There we go.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this forum, this medium to talk and to share. We pray, Lord, that something would have been said that's a help and an encouragement, not only to us, but to everybody who's listening, God. Lord, I pray for my church that you would cause us to do everything that you called us to do so that we can be a light in this dark world, be able to help our community. Lord, I pray for every other church, Lord, that all churches will do what you call them to do in whatever area that is, Lord. We thank you for those in the past who have set a standard for us, dear God. And Lord, help us to take that torch and carry it on and hold it up even higher. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All
Well,
right.
thanks everyone. Well, that's a show wrap, and so let me go ahead and close us out.